Left of the box. Ex-Minister Selina Robinson quits BC NDP citing anti-Semitism in caucus. Now, I'm not happy about anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is bad. However, this is not a case of anti-Semitism. A while ago, I covered a story of Selina Robinson here, who on camera in front of people said,
they don't even understand that Israel was offered to the Jews who were displaced. So they have no connection to how it started. They don't understand that it was a crappy piece of land with nothing on it. There were several 100,000 people, but other than that,
and she got a lot of slack for that. She also said some pretty rough things about Indigenous peoples as them not being normal. She doesn't want to interfere with, or they weren't regular people. She doesn't want to interfere with the interactions between different Indigenous bands because it's not for regular people to get involved with, that sort of thing. And it's just horrible person. And again, this is why I say NDP, it's hit and miss with some of the people in there. But she immediately started to cry victim. So she was an education minister, so she was no longer minister, but she was still allowed to be part of the BC NDP caucus. This after Sarah Jama was kicked out of the Ontario NDP caucus for basically saying there should be a ceasefire in Gaza. She jumped the gun on that one. She said that just a few days after October 7th. That, there needs to be a ceasefire and all that sort of stuff. And because she did that before her party, tisk tisk tisk. Also, she's a Black Muslim woman of Somali descent living with a disability and is quite young. I'm sure that also had something to do with it. So here's this woman. I can't continue to be the only voice speaking up against anti-Semitism and Jew hatred, said Robinson. A former British Columbia cabinet minister quit the New Democrat government Wednesday. She should have been kicked out. They shouldn't have let it go on this long. Citing anti-Semitism in the party caucus and indifference towards the problem. Selina Robinson, who is Jewish, said she could no longer remain in the government because it was not properly addressing anti-Semitism in the province or among some of her former colleagues. So what she considers anti-Semitism are people saying that Palestinians have the right to live. Yeah. That, the genocide must stop, ceasefire now. Those kind of fall into the camp of anti-Semitism for this woman. She said she will sit as an independent. She has previously announced her retirement, saying she won't be running in the provincial elections this October. Asked if there were anti-Semitic voices in the caucus, Robinson said, "That's been my experience. There's been a history of that. I'm aware of people who have said or done anti-Semitic things over time. They've apologized or not." Okay. Yeah. So, as I noted in that, she's worried that the people she represents will no longer, they're losing out in government. There's going to be one less Zionist in government. Considering what our country is doing in supporting Israel and the weapons that we're sending over, having one less Zionist in the government, I don't think is going to have the impact she thinks it will. I wish it would. She said she felt her voice was no longer being heard within the party. I can't continue to be the only voice speaking up against anti-Semitism and Jew hatred, said Robinson. All of this has made Jewish people feel unsafe, and I have shared all of this with the Premier's office over the last 5 months, and I continue to be the only one who is saying we have to do something differently. Robinson resigned her cabinet post as Minister of Post-Secondary Education last month after saying modern Israel was founded on a crappy piece of land. Her remarks on January 30th sparked outcry from pro-Palestinian groups that called them racist and Islamophobic, which they were. Robinson told an impromptu news conference in a hallway of the BC legislature on Wednesday that her heart has been shattered by her treatment since the cabinet resignation and that she was a victim of double standards. Oh, I talked about double standards a lot when I was covering this story. I've clipped it. You can actually go back on my channel and watch it. Because here she is, crying that she was forced to step down, when again we have Sarah Jama, who was just calling for a ceasefire, who was censured at Queen's Park by the Conservative government and then kicked out of caucus by the NDP. That happened to her, and nothing happened to Selina. She felt pressured to step down. She felt pressured to leave the caucus, but she faced no actual repercussions for what she said. Whereas Sarah Jama, calling for peace, was totally attacked and demonized for that. It's been a month of, I would say, crying every day. I shouldn't laugh at that, but the whole white woman tear things, the making herself into the victim. Come on. NDP House Leader Ravi said it was a sad day. Selina is clearly hurting. I certainly hope she finds peace as she moves forward. He denied there was anti-Semitism in the NDP caucus. We're going to continue to call out racism, whether it's towards the Jewish community, to others in our community, he said. We brought back a Human Rights Commission. We have launched the strongest anti-racism strategy in the country. This work is important to us. It's deeply important to all of the colleagues. Okay, I don't think we need to go into all of this. Again, it's also like we had all of our leaders. Justin Trudeau, Jagmeet Singh, Mayor Olivia Chow of Toronto, totally be outraged when there is a protest that went by a Jewish named hospital, accusing people of climbing up on the scaffolding, of targeting that hospital, and how horrible it was that they did this when it was literally, they were just walking by and the person who climbed up on the scaffolding was wearing a Spider-Man outfit and was climbing up everything he could along the way. They called it out as being like this horrific thing that shouldn't have happened. They lied about them, saying that they were going into the hospital and harassing Jewish doctors and patients. And they left those tweets up. Meanwhile, just a little while ago, there was a protest outside of a synagogue that was holding a real estate event of selling off illegal settlement homes. And so, yeah, there was a protest outside of it, and a Zionist went to that with a nail gun and tried attacking people. And all of those same politicians, nothing. So there is a double standard. It's just not affecting her the way that she wants to victimize herself about. And then I found this just to be absolutely ridiculous. So Richard here has tweeted out, here is the letter Selina Robinson sent her colleagues in caucus. Oh, that's not all. There's a fifth page. Wow! She wrote a novel about being a victim. Like, there's no way. Like, I'm not going to go over all of this. But to just write in such detail how much of a victim she is. Your silence broke my heart that day. You abandoned me and my community that day. Oh, but it wasn't their anti-Semitism that broke my heart. It was your silence to their anti-Semitism that hurt the most. Not a single one of you responded to their insensitive, disrespectful, and inappropriate email. No one. Yeah, nobody was defending Sarah Jama when it came to other politicians. When she was being targeted, like her office was absolutely being targeted with hateful stuff to the point that they had to shut it down because it was getting threats. When she was forced to leave Queen's Park without any assistance, and you had the press around her, and she uses a wheelchair. And so to maneuver through that crowd, where were the people helping her get through that crush of reporters, helping her to feel safe? No one was there, and she was physically intimidated and being in danger at those times. But here, Selina's office got decorated with, post-it notes. They put post-it notes on her door and some chalk on the road. And she feels threatened by that. She must have like the worst phobia of paper cuts I could imagine. Let's just pick another random paragraph from this and see where it goes. Holocaust survivors have been re-traumatized and some have wound up in the hospital in the days and weeks after the massacre as they relive the horrors they experienced some 75 years ago. They see marches, the chanting in our streets, the threats to Jews around the world, and they say, it's happening again. Sorry. I shouldn't be laughing at this, but be like, oh no, this attack on October 7th, horrific. Nobody argues that. Over 30,000 people dead in Gaza at the hands of Israel. It's not about Hamas anymore. It has not been about Hamas for a long time. And there were these types of atrocities happening well before Hamas was even a thing. It's just, yeah. But she needs to be the victim. Let's just pick another random paragraph. It is messy. It's complex. It's emotional. It's hard. You just want it to go away. I understand. I want it to go away. But my community needed you in that moment to be there in their grief, in my grief. And none of you were prepared or willing to stand up to my colleagues who were anti-Semitic, minimizing the Jewish experience, the slaughter of innocent civilians by terrorists, countering with mirrored messages about the plight of Palestinians. Oh no, they brought up what was happening to the Palestinians while I was crying and being a victim. How dare they? But in that moment, it was not so complex. People were murdered because they were Jewish, and people here in British Columbia were needing us to mourn with them. It'd be easier to mourn with them if they weren't, if their government wasn't busy genociding people. Over 2 million people are in danger of starvation right now because of this government that you're just so heartbroken about. Okay, another random paragraph. Shortly afterwards, I reached out to Attorney General as the racism file is under her ministry. Nikki had been assigned to the point of contact for the Jewish community given the historical anti-Semitism that the Jewish community has experienced from Marble, the parliamentary secretary for anti-racism. So she's still just crying that, they're not making her the biggest victim in the world. Down here, anti-Semitism is calling for the destruction and annihilation of Israel, where half the world's 15.8 million Jews live. Anti-Semitism is making Jewish people afraid to show their identity. Anti-Semitism is silencing an openly identified Jewish person who is speaking out about anti-Semitism. Your collective decision to silence me is anti-Semitism, and you don't even know it. You not supporting my Zionist beliefs is anti-Semitic, and you don't even know how badly anti-Semitic you are. Oh, the final straw came for me last week. I pitched an idea to the premier 10 days after I was asked to resign that perhaps the government could show leadership on this hate and division we were seeing in two hurting communities by bringing the communities together. I suggested that perhaps I could work with the Jewish community and engage with the Arab Muslim community to facilitate dialogue, find a different path for the two communities in agony. As part of that work, all the caucus could participate in anti-Islamophobia and anti-Semitism training, set an example for how leaders could be better understand in the respective pain and fear, and government could show leadership by bringing people together. Last week, Matt Smith told me this work was too political and that the government was not interested at this time. Anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim sentiment are at an all-time high, and the government doesn't see itself as having a role in helping these communities. This shatters what was left of my broken heart. God. This is not the party I signed on with. It has become a party that is afraid to stand with people who are hurting. It is now a party that puts politics and re-election before people. I could have told you that. It is with all of this in mind that I am leaving caucus to sit as an independent. I can no longer defend the choices this government is making, and I need to mend my broken heart. And I can't do that with you simply offer me hugs and heart emojis. But I don't care to educate yourselves or understand the fear and anguish of being Jewish in this moment. Silence is not leadership, it's cowardice, and I cannot be silent. Wow. 5 pages of crying victim over saying horrific remarks and showing her true nature when it comes to what she believes of Palestinians. Just not only that, but also indigenous peoples that she also um, said really bad things about in that same meeting and at different times. Just wow. That is just like 5 pages of white woman tears there. Like, is that what, drove the ink out of her pen? Like, it's just